also created kind of your own world surrounding this game, right?
Yeah.
It's called Tempo, I believe, right?
It's future Earth essentially, right? So we're looking out, 100 something years, and we're looking at a world where the concept of post-apocalypse has become cliche. You'll hear me say that a lot when I talk about the world of Tempo, and that's not unlike the world we currently live in. And so you'll see some of that parallel kind of flavor there, right? Because it's post-apocalyptic, not literally, right? Obviously, from a theological standpoint, but from kind of a emotional standpoint, right? We're living in this world that feels very dystopic and very kind of torn asunder, and people are recovering, and they're reeling at the same time.
I know that, with this world of Tempo, this is not your first foray into it, right? It hasn't been you just kind of sitting back in some dark corner thinking about this world and now I have a game, right?
No, this is not my first foray. So, it started with a card game called Empyrean Hero. It was a game that I'd been playing a lot of PS4 at the time, and I was, just been a gamer like my entire life, right? Into video games, so I created this game called Empyrean Hero, and the market a pocket game. The market is a short filler game.
Filler game, though it may be, on Board Game Geek it has a 7.8. I just checked today. A 7.8 on Board Game Geek is virtually unheard of for most games. I mean, a 7 is a very high score on there. If you're near the 8 territory, we're talking about some of the best games that are out there. So speaking on that, this is an expansion to that. So first of all, do you need the original market game to be able to play the expansion, or are they standalone?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the expansion definitely requires the original. It's not a standalone by itself. Although with the original, so the market a pocket game, if you have one copy of that game, you can play solo or with 2 players, which is actually nice for that filler game concept, right? If you're sitting at a board game store waiting for people to show up, hey, and pull out this game and play a solo round, right? Mm-hmm. The expansion, or then with the base game, the market a pocket game, if you have 2 copies of the game, you can actually play 3 to 4 players. So that's a nice kind of flavor. You don't really want to expand beyond 4, because by the time you're done with the first round, somebody will have won, and that's a mistake. Yeah, I exaggerate a little bit. There's still kind of that flavor. So, but with if you have 1 or 2 copies of the market a pocket game, you only need 1 copy of the upgrades regardless. So you can play 1 to 4 players. You just need to make sure you have the base copy or base copies. This expansion, it increases the agency, right? There's a little more strategy involved intentionally, and part of it was to try to scratch that itch for people who don't like the luck element as much, and they want to be able to think a little more long term, and they don't want to have that short term kind of tactical thinking, right? And so when you dive into the expansion, we're not talking about just playing a 10-minute filler game anymore. Now we're talking about a 15 to 20-minute light strategy game.
Awesome. Okay, so then the game is called the Upgrades, right? A market expansion. So yeah. We're literally talking about upgrades. What does that look like? Is it just like you're saying, building on that prior game, adding a little bit more time, adding a little bit less luck, a little bit more strategy for those who you're saying like kind of want to scratch that itch? So is that really what you're honing in on for this expansion, or is there really anything else behind it? Like what's the driver behind the expansion?
No, that's great. So I actually had several of the gamers who originally bought into the market and supported me on Kickstarter for that project, and they said, look, we like this game, but we want something a little bit more, right? And it wasn't all of them. There were a lot who were absolutely in love with the first game, right? But there were a handful. I'm like, man, like I want to scratch that itch too, right? Like I want to try to reach different audiences here. With this, what I did was I added a new resource type. There's 3 original building types. You've got compost, you've got fiddleheads, and synthetic light, which are all kind of these post-apocalyptic resources. The synthetic light is the more interesting one. It's generated out of some of the edgings of the flux, right? And it essentially is a light in the form of liquid that can be poured onto plants to see them grow, right? So in this game, I've added a fourth kind of resource type. It's called Hardfire. and it plays differently than the others. The other three you can just kind of gather on occasion. Hardfire you have to trade for though, right? And so it becomes a little more costly to make it happen. But if you play the mechanic right, you can use it to your benefit. I've also added new I guess like legendary equipment, if you will, right, to the game. So there's these 4 different piles. One is like canes. One are what are called darts, which are essentially like you might consider them to be like pod racing kind of things from Star Wars or something. I don't know. I've just come up with a kind of a reference point, right?
Sure.
And there's like kind of like a scarf looking thing that's you can level up, and there's a fourth one. But with these different kind of items, there's these 4 different piles. You buy the cheap one, right? But then you can exchange the cheap one, right, for a level up and upgrade, if you will, right? And who doesn't love collecting loot and then leveling it up, right? Like that's just like the epitome of gamer mentality. And so I was just like, you know what, this isn't like a go around and explore world and discover random loot kind of game, but let's have a little bit of that flavor in here, something that's kind of fun and enjoyable, and you can actually snag the upgrade that the person wants to level up for out from under them if you pay the full cost on it, right? Whereas if they upgrade to it, they don't have to pay the full cost. And so, I wanted to create these different mechanics, right, that stuck with the flavor of the base game, but added something new to it as well.
So now we're moving into the upgrades, which is literally an expansion for the Market Pocket game. So am I able to take a deep dive, a full dive into the world of Tempo with this Kickstarter?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So I would say that with this Kickstarter, you're going to be able to get the Market a Pocket game. You'll be able to get the upgrades, the expansion for the Market, right? And then you'll also be able to go ahead and pre-order the novella, essentially, right? Because it's the novella is a place where it's going through the editing mode, right? And then I'm almost done with that editing phase, and then I've got a few more pieces of content regarding that I have to produce that were part of the rewards, including an audio version of it, right? And so I want to make sure that I've got all that out there. One of the things that's worth noting here is that Empyrean Hero is not being sold as a part of this Kickstarter, right? And so, and with that, there will be. There are plans, right, to move a little bit further with Empyrean Hero in the future as well. So, but a lot of that honestly hangs on this Kickstarter, right? Because there's an emotional part of being a project creator that looks at it and says, like, I'm trying to move forward, I'm trying to press forward, but I really want to make this into a business and not just a hobby, right? I want to see the ability to produce media, right, that is of quality, and that people are like, yes, we're going to come back time and time and time again. We want to see this world grow. We want to see something exciting happen, right? And that's what I'm aiming for here. Yeah.
Is there anything else I haven't captured? Is there anything else you want to share about the Kickstarter? Anything else like that?
No, yeah, I think that the only other thing that I would kind of throw in here is that and people will see it when they get to the Kickstarter, this game is not a theological game, right? So it's not gonna put the same flavor out there that the book will. The game is based in the book, but in the game, we're just average people trying to manage some resources in order to build a life for ourselves. We're trying to gain some hope, right? And the expansion adds to it, right? So it's no longer that we're trying to gain hope, but we're also trying to gain power in order to provide witness, so to speak, right? And so you can win with either hope or power in the upgrades, which is a kind of a multi-functional win element, which is interesting. And you can win with either win condition, right? And so that idea of like, this game is not a theologically heavy game, but it's something to give you a little bit more of a fleshed out flavor of the context of the world you're reading about when you get to the book itself, right?
Awesome. Well, Wesley, I appreciate your time. I think this maybe ran a little bit longer than we were anticipating, but I appreciate your willingness to have the conversation. I'm excited for the upgrades. I'm also excited to get into the Market game myself and learn all about that and those mechanics. and also just to step a little bit deeper into the world of tempo. So I appreciate your time. And before we wrap up, everybody, this has been Matthew with Gaming and God. And I know we do a lot of video games, but guess what? Board games are awesome too. I love board games. I have so many board games, and here we have Wesley here, a testament to board games can be awesome, just like video games can be awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one.
Thank you, Matt.